So here we are on the Bridgeport. So I've got a aftermarket Warhawk 660 head here. And this is actually a highway pop-up. I've cut the pop-up a little bit more. So the highway pop-ups are about 15 thousandths of pop. I added another 25 thousandths. So that's going to affect squish. Squish with the gasket was like 64 thousandths. So 64, I add another 25, is 89. So in order to get down to a 20,000 squish, 89 minus 20 is 69 thousandths. So I need to machine roughly 69 thousandths off the base, which is not a problem. I actually have the room before freeporting. It's close, but I have the room. So I'll machine 69 thousandths off the base. But in order to do that, you have to actually indicate not this flat, but the bore perpendicular to the plane here. So you can do that a number of ways. One, you do that with an indicator and a dial indicator on the lathe, and you can make sure that you are round and perpendicular and all that stuff. So as you indicate, you can do that. That's probably the best way to do it. The way to do it indirectly on the Bridgeport is to use the piston you're going to use, stick it in here on top of another piston. I actually have another 660 piston in there, the original Warhawk piston, which, by the way, is a little more sloppy in the bore than this one is. The highway this is pretty rigid in the bore. And you can see, if we go around, a thousandth of an inch of variance, if that. If you go back and forth, you can... I mean, it's just not that much slop. So that's good. The highway is a little tighter to this bore. So it'll be a better fit. We'll have more compression. If it's too tight, then obviously you get binding and all that stuff, but I think this is going to be fine. Anyway, so what I did was, this top part I machined the band here, but not the top part. So the top part, we have to assume, is as close to flat as possible and perpendicular to the bore now. So regardless of what this surface is, the outer surface here, whether this is off or canted or whatever, is irrelevant. We now know that this is perpendicular to the bore. Again, that's kind of an indirect way of doing it, but I think it works. So if we take and move this all the way over here, we're still at 0. Move it back to center. Move over here, we're at 0. Yeah, old creaky old mill. And we're still at 0. Sorry about the glare here. So that's as darn close. Again, if you wiggle it, you're still only getting half a thousandth of wiggle. So that's plenty accurate to make sure that you are as perpendicular to the bore as possible. What happens with these heads is, if you're off, especially side to side, front to back doesn't matter as much. If you're tilted in the plane of movement, it's not a big deal. If you're tilted out of the plane of movement, that's a problem. So, because what happens is then the piston ends up traveling effectively off center, and you wear your crank out. Not the best. So we know that we're all straight here, and it doesn't matter what the factory machined this to. We're going to get it straight. So hang on a second, and we'll do the actual cut. I've got a regular old 1/2-inch carbide in here, not a big deal. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to set it on here, get a 0, and then set it to 69 thousandths and make my cut all the way around. Incidentally, if you want to know how I came at 69 thousandths, there's a scratch right here indicating where the piston is at top at top dead center. So here's 69 thousandths, and I'm within that scratch. So I won't free pour it, basically. So I know that 69 thousandths is going to be okay to drop the base by 69 thousandths because we've got just that much room. So I'm going to be right on the bleeding edge of free pouring. So I've got a little scratch there. Now I go down over here. Set my 0. Hard to do with one hand. Close enough. There's my 0. And now we go 69 thousandths. So, dial it up. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 9. Don't forget to put your this thing down, otherwise this will turn on you. Not the best. This is nice and stable. Now that's quite a cut here, so I'm going to go awful slow and I'm going to do it off camera, but I'll try to finish it up on camera, okay? Here we go. Just the last little bit to do here. Again, I'm just doing this freehand. And that's it. And if you go, here, let me bring this out here a little bit. And if you go all the way around, and then you come back here and there's no step, you got it made. That's it. Beautiful. That's as flat as this machine can possibly get it. And reasonably perpendicular. Now, what we have to do later, and this is the nice thing about the lathe, is that you can just go in here and hit this inner edge here with the lathe and make a nice chamfer. I'll do that freehand later. That way it'll be easier to put the rings in. But overall, I think that's pretty nice. Just had to shut the machines off. So overall, I like this surface. I like a nice milled surface. It's really near mirror finish. I know you see scratches there, but I mean it's just really just as nice as it needs to be. So again, not necessarily the way to do it. This is just how I do it. Another thing to consider is that I don't like machining bases in general unless they're nice and thick. These, the 660 bases tend to be really thick here. If you're doing some of the Huskies, they tend to be thinner. And if you really want to do a lot of machining on them, you can really thin them out quite a bit and then you can crack ears off, which I really don't like the idea of. So this nice thick heavy base makes it a lot easier to play around with it like this. We'll take this back to the saw tonight and see if it actually does exactly what it was intended to do. So again, I cut the pop-up a little further down on the lathe. Then we use this surface to create perpendicular here. Do your measurements, do your math, figure out exactly how much you need to cut away. Should retain a 20,000 squish with the stock base gasket. So now one of the downsides to doing this, you drop the head, you increase compression, but the intake ends up being really too low. You end up taking too big of a gulp of air for it to be efficient. So I'll probably need to fill in the intake with some JB weld. So there you have that. I'll post this up, and we'll probably do some live later and see how this looks live on camera. Okay, talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.